They called Angela foolish for turning away men with money, with status, to marry Michael, a man with nothing but calloused hands and an old car. Her family opposed. The neighbors mocked. Everyone was certain she would suffer for the rest of her life, but no one knew. The man the whole town looked down on carried a secret that would silence them all. From the day Angela chose this marriage, she became the subject of endless gossip. People said she was blind. They said she was burying her youth in a poor and fragile home. Some even whispered cruelly, "A smart nurse like her, why would she choose such a hopeless path?" But Angela did not tremble. Behind her calm eyes was a heart that chose love over money. A belief that true happiness could never be measured by mansions or cars, but only by the strength to stand together through life's storms. And for those who have ever been judged, ever been forced to choose a life they did not want, this story will strike deep in your heart. If you, too, have ever placed love above wealth, leave a heart icon below, because Angela and Michael's journey has only just begun. Angela Johnson worked as a nurse in a small southern town. People admired her gentle nature, her kindness, and the way she always put others before herself. She cared for patients as if they were family, and in every smile she gave, people saw her sincerity. Despite the simple life she lived, Angela carried a quiet strength. She never measured happiness in bank accounts or expensive jewelry. To her, wealth could not buy trust, laughter, or the comfort of a loyal heart. She believed real happiness was found in love that endured, not in possessions that faded. Others in town saw her as naive. They wondered why a woman so capable and respected would not seek a man of means. But Angela did not waver. She often said to her closest friend, "What use is gold if the heart is empty?" This belief, steady and unshaken, guided her choices every day. Yet her parents worried. They wanted more for her, something they believed love alone could never provide. And though Angela listened respectfully, her heart clung to a truth they did not understand. Because for Angela, love was not a dream. It was her foundation. Angela's parents had always dreamed of a secure future for their daughter. They believed safety could only be built on wealth, stability, and status. In their eyes, money was not greed. It was protection. It was the only shield against the hardships of life. Her mother often spoke with a tone of concern. "Angela, you deserve a man who can give you a comfortable home, not a life of struggle," she would say, pressing her daughter's hand as if to warn her of unseen storms. Her father nodded in agreement. "Love is good, child, but bills cannot be paid with feelings." Angela respected their fears, yet deep inside she could not agree. She had seen wealthy couples collapse when trust was absent. She had seen marriages filled with money but starved of kindness. At night, alone in her small apartment, she whispered to herself, "I will not trade my heart for security. I want a partner, not a paycheck." Still, the pressure of family weighed heavily. Each conversation planted doubt. Each sigh reminded her of expectations. Yet Angela's spirit remained firm. She would choose her own path, even if it meant walking against the will of those she loved. It was at a friend's wedding when Angela first noticed Michael. The hall was filled with laughter, polished shoes, and sharp suits. Men tried to impress with loud voices, boasting of their cars and jobs. Yet, in the corner, one man stood apart. Michael wore a plain shirt. His shoes were worn. His hands bore the marks of long labor, yet when he smiled it carried warmth and sincerity that outshone all the glitter around him. Angela's eyes met his for only a brief moment, but it was enough. She saw no arrogance, no show, only calm presence. Something stirred inside her, though she quickly looked away, unsure why her heart had skipped. Throughout the evening, she noticed him again and again. He did not push himself into conversations. He did not try to win attention. He simply observed, respectful, almost as if he felt he did not belong there. But to Angela, there was a quiet dignity in his silence. And in that crowded room, surrounded by noise and wealth, it was the quiet man who remained in her thoughts. That night, she went home with questions she could not yet answer. Days turned into weeks, and Angela began to notice Michael in unexpected places. At the grocery store, standing patiently in line, he nodded politely when their eyes met. At the library, he sat in a corner with an old book, lifting his gaze only to offer a small, respectful smile. Once, while she volunteered at a local charity for children, she saw him again. He was not there to speak loudly or to be seen. He was simply carrying boxes, helping quietly, unnoticed by most. But Angela noticed. Each meeting was brief. He never lingered, never forced conversation. Yet, every time there was a sense of recognition, a spark of curiosity. She wondered if fate was weaving their paths together. Others might not have cared, but Angela felt something different. His humility contrasted with the showy men who often tried to win her favor. He carried no arrogance, only a steady presence. At night, she replayed those moments, asking herself why a stranger's simple smile could stay in her mind. She did not yet know the answer, but she knew this: Michael was no ordinary man, and her heart, quietly, had begun to take notice. As the days passed, Angela began to hear the voices of others. Women in town whispered behind her back. Some did not even bother to lower their voices. "Michael is poor," one said with a laugh. "He has no family wealth, no position, no future." Another shook her head. "A man like that cannot take care of anyone. He will drag her down." Angela heard the words. At first, they stung like small cuts. But the more she listened, the more she felt pity rather than anger. These women measured life by money and titles. They could not see what she had begun to see in Michael. She remembered his quiet smile, his steady presence, the way he helped without seeking praise. To her, those qualities were more valuable than any checkbook. Still, the voices followed her everywhere, at the market, at church, even at work. They warned her she was wasting her life. Angela kept silent, but inside she whispered to herself, "Why does it matter if he has no money? A kind heart is richer than gold." And in that belief, her feelings for Michael only grew stronger. One evening, after weeks of quiet glances and brief encounters, Michael finally gathered the courage to speak. He found Angela at the edge of the town square. The air was cool, and the streets were nearly empty. His words were not polished. They carried no poetry, no grand gesture, but they came from the deepest part of his heart. "I don't have much to give you," he said softly. "No fortune, no promises of comfort, but what I can give is all I am. My honesty, my loyalty, my love, and nothing less." Angela looked into his eyes. There was no arrogance, no fear, only truth. The world around them seemed to fade as his voice reached her. In that moment she felt her heart move. His words carried more weight than the shiny boasts of men with suits and cars. Here was a man who valued love above all else. Angela smiled faintly, touched in a way she could not explain. She thought to herself, "This is what I have always searched for. Not wealth, not glory, but truth." And with that, the seed of something deeper took root between them. When Angela told her parents about Michael, the reaction was immediate and heavy. Her mother's voice was sharp, filled with fear. "Angela, how can you even think of marrying a man like him? He has nothing, no stability, no future to give you." Her father frowned, his tone firm but worried. "Marriage is not only about love, it is about building a secure life. You need someone who can protect you from hardship. Think wisely, my daughter." The weight of their words pressed on her, but Angela's spirit did not bend. She listened with respect, yet her heart was clear. "Father, Mother," she said gently, "I understand your fears, but I will not trade love for wealth. I want a partner who will stand with me through every storm. That man is Michael." Her parents looked at her, their eyes filled with disappointment. They could not understand. To them, she was stepping into darkness, but to Angela, she was stepping into light. Her choice was not foolishness, it was courage, it was faith, and no amount of pressure could turn her heart away. The day of the wedding arrived. The church was simple, decorated with flowers gathered by friends. Angela walked with calm steps, her head held high. But whispers filled the air. "She is making the biggest mistake of her life," someone muttered. "Poor girl," another sighed. "She will regret this day." Angela heard the words, but her face did not change. Her eyes shone with peace. To her, love was worth every sacrifice, every sneer. Michael stood waiting at the altar. His clothes were plain, his shoes worn, but his gaze was steady. When she met his eyes, everything else faded away. As the vows were spoken, some shook their heads in pity. Others smirked in disbelief. But Angela's heart was certain. She was not marrying wealth. She was not marrying status. She was marrying loyalty, humility, and love that promised to endure. And in that small church, with judgment hanging in the air, Angela chose her future. Not the future others wished for her, but the one she believed in with all her heart. After the wedding, Angela and Michael began their life together in a small, rented apartment. The walls were thin, the furniture second-hand, and the windows drafty in winter. Angela cooked simple meals. She cleaned with care. She arranged the few possessions they had to make the space warm. What mattered was not the size of the rooms, but the spirit inside them. Michael worked long hours, often returning home tired. Yet he never failed to smile at Angela. He never forgot to ask about her day. He treated her with respect, as if she were the most precious gift he had. At night, they laughed over small jokes. They shared bread and soup. They spoke of dreams that cost nothing but love. Outside, the world saw only poverty. Neighbors whispered of wasted youth. Relatives pitied her choice. But inside their little home, Angela felt rich. She whispered to herself, "Happiness is not measured by walls or wealth. It is measured by love that fills the silence." And in that humble place, their true journey began. Life soon revealed its weight. Michael worked long hours at a warehouse, lifting boxes until his back ached. His pay was barely enough to cover rent, food, and bills. Each dollar had to stretch further than it could. Angela became skilled at cutting corners. She planned meals carefully, counted coins, and often skipped her own needs so Michael could eat well enough to keep his strength for work. When he came home, exhausted and dusty, she offered him a plate of food with a smile that hid her sacrifice. Sometimes she went to bed with hunger, but she never complained. Instead, she reminded herself of what mattered. Love filled the silence, not money. Respect carried her through the tired nights. But the world outside did not see the love in their home. It saw only the cracks of poverty. And though Angela never said a word, the struggle grew heavier each day. Yet, when Michael held her hand across the table when he whispered a tired, "Thank you," she felt her sacrifices had meaning. For her, every small act of giving was proof that their love was worth more than all the gold she did not have. In the town, whispers never stopped. Relatives, neighbors, even strangers found ways to mock her choice. "Angela could have had everything," someone said with pity. "She had beauty, a good job, respect, and yet she chose nothing," another added. Each word was a needle. She carried the sting quietly, not wanting Michael to feel the shame, but inside, the pain was real. At church gatherings, women glanced at her worn dress and shook their heads. At the grocery store, men smirked when they saw her count change at the counter. Even among family, silence spoke louder than words. Angela endured. She lifted her chin, smiled politely, and walked away. But when she lay awake at night, she felt the weight of their judgment pressing on her chest. Still, she did not regret her choice. Every cruel remark only deepened her conviction. "They cannot see what I see," she whispered to herself. Her love for Michael, his honesty, his gentleness, these were treasures no one else valued. And though the voices of scorn echoed around her, Angela's heart refused to break. She chose to carry the burden of their ridicule in silence, shielding Michael from their cruelty. It was during these heavy nights that Angela noticed something strange in Michael. Often, when he thought she was not watching, he sat quietly by the window. His gaze stretched far beyond the streets of their small town. There was a distance in his eyes, a heaviness, as though he carried memories too deep to speak. His hands rested on his knees, but his thoughts seemed far away, reaching toward a world she did not know. Angela's heart stirred with questions. Who was he before she met him? Why did he sometimes vanish into silence? Why did shadows linger in his expression when he thought himself unseen? Yet she did not ask. She chose to trust instead of press. In her heart, love was stronger than suspicion. She believed that when the time was right, he would share what weighed on him. For now, she only placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, breaking his trance. He always turned back to her with a soft smile, as if grateful for her quiet understanding. And though mystery lingered, Angela whispered to herself, "Love is patience. I will wait." Angela carried her questions like folded letters never opened. She sensed Michael's secrets, but her faith was stronger than her curiosity. When friends asked if she ever doubted him, she shook her head. "Love is not about demanding answers," she said softly. "It is about trust, even when you cannot see the road ahead." This patience became her anchor. She reminded herself daily. Storms would pass, struggles would ease, and truth would reveal itself in time. Until then, she would not let fear take root. In the quiet of their evenings, she chose to smile rather than pry. She cooked meals with care, filled their home with warmth, and held Michael's hand when shadows crossed his face. Sometimes her heart ached with longing to know more, but then she remembered the vow she carried deep inside. Love is greater than doubt, and so she stayed steady. Her patience was not weakness, it was strength. It was the choice to believe in the man she loved, even when the world insisted she was wrong. And in that steady choice, Angela's love grew deeper, unshaken by silence, unbroken by uncertainty. Then came the coldest winter the town had seen in years. Their apartment had poor heating. Frost clung to the windows, and their breath hung in the air like smoke. Angela wrapped herself in thin blankets, shivering through the nights. The floor was icy, the walls drafty, and sometimes she could not sleep from the chill. Yet not once did she complain. She smiled when Michael came home, hiding the trembling in her hands. She placed warm tea in front of him, even if it meant her own cup stayed empty. She endured the cold quietly, determined not to burden him with her suffering. Michael noticed her shivers. He saw the way she tucked her hands beneath the covers. Guilt flickered in his eyes, but he said nothing. Angela pretended not to see, knowing he already carried enough weight. The winter was cruel, but Angela's heart was warm. She told herself again and again, "Love is greater than comfort. This season will pass." And though the cold bit at her bones, she held tightly to her belief. Because for her, true warmth was not from fire or blankets. It was from love that never froze. Clara, Angela's closest friend, visited one evening. She looked at Angela with a mix of sympathy and frustration. "I don't understand you," Clara said gently. "You deserve more than this. You deserve comfort. Stability? Why tie yourself to a man who has nothing to give?" Angela set down the teacup in her hand. For a moment she was quiet, listening as she always did. Then she smiled softly, her voice calm but firm. "Clara, he gives me something money can never buy. He gives me love, and to me that is worth more than any comfort." Clara sighed, shaking her head. She could not argue against Angela's conviction, though she still worried for her friend. That night, after Clara left, Angela stood by the window. Outside, snow drifted through the dark streets. She whispered to herself, "They will never understand, but I do, and that is enough." Her faith was not shaken by the doubts of others. Instead, it deepened. Because for Angela, love was not measured by what was in her home, but by the loyalty in her husband's heart. And no friend, no warning, could pull her away from that truth. The whispers of the town did not stop. Sometimes they grew sharper, cutting deeper into Angela's heart. Yet she never let Michael see the wounds. When neighbors mocked, she smiled as if she had not heard. When relatives pitied her, she changed the subject. When strangers questioned her choice, she walked on in silence. Inside, she carried the pain alone. She bore it to shield Michael from shame. She knew he worked hard, that he already carried the weight of providing for them. She would not add to his burden. At night, she lay beside him, whispering gentle words of pride and encouragement. "I'm proud of you," she would say, even if her own heart ached from the day's cruelty, and every time his tired eyes softened, her words gave him strength. Angela's love became her armor. She wore it against the laughter of others, against their judgment and scorn. And though she suffered in silence, she did not regret it. To her, protecting Michael's dignity was more important than easing her own pain. It was a sacrifice no one saw, but it was the deepest proof of her love. One winter night, Angela woke to find the bed empty. Panic rushed through her. She searched their small apartment, but Michael was gone. On the table she found a note. The handwriting was hurried. "I'll be back before dawn. Trust me." Her heart pounded. Hours passed slowly. She sat by the window watching snow fall under the streetlight, waiting for the sound of the door. Finally, just before dawn, Michael returned. His clothes were dusted with frost. His face carried an expression she could not read, both weary and heavy with secrets. Angela rushed to him, but before she could speak, he pulled her into his arms. His voice was low, trembling with something she did not understand. "Forgive me," he whispered. "Forgive me for the secrets I keep. Please, trust me." Angela held him tighter. Questions filled her mind, but she swallowed them. She chose silence, letting her trust speak louder than words. The mystery deepened, but her faith remained. And in that embrace, she reminded herself, love sometimes means waiting in the dark. Weeks later, whispers began to spread through town. People said Michael had been seen far from their neighborhood, walking into tall glass buildings in Charlotte's financial district. Angela laughed it off at first. "It must be another cruel rumor," she told herself. "They only want to make me doubt him." But the whispers grew persistent. Some swore they had seen him speaking with men in suits. Others said he entered offices where powerful businessmen made decisions. The rumors clung to her thoughts, following her even into her sleep. At night, she turned in bed, wondering where Michael truly went during those long hours away. Still, she pushed the doubts down. She remembered his smile, his honesty, his love. She reminded herself, "The world has always judged him wrongly. I will not join their voices." Yet, deep in her heart, a quiet unease began to stir. Curiosity pressed against her patience, and though she stood firm, she could not deny the questions rising inside. What was Michael hiding, and why? The questions soon reached her doorstep. Friends and neighbors asked with boldness, "Angela, are you sure you know who you married? People say your husband hides something. Don't you wonder what it is?" Each inquiry was a test. Each word carried the weight of doubt, but Angela did not falter. "Yes," she said firmly, "I know his heart, and that is enough for me." Her words silenced some, but others shook their heads, unable to understand. To them, she was blinded by love. To her, she was walking in truth. Angela believed that a marriage built on trust could endure any storm. She chose not to question Michael, not because she was afraid, but because her love was stronger than suspicion. At night, she looked at him with quiet certainty. Even when his eyes held shadows she could not explain, she whispered to herself, "He is mine, and I believe in him." It was a choice the world could not comprehend, but for Angela, it was the only path. Her faith in Michael did not waver. Not then, not ever. One night, Angela awoke to silence. The bed beside her was cold, empty. Her heart raced as she searched every corner of their small apartment, but Michael was gone. On the table lay a single piece of paper. The handwriting was hurried, almost trembling. "Trust me, I will return." Angela clutched the note, her hands shaking. Tears filled her eyes as fear spread through her chest. Where had he gone? Why had he left without a word? The hours stretched like days. She sat by the window, watching the dark streets, praying for the sound of the door to open. Each creak in the building made her turn her head, but the silence remained. Loneliness wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She whispered to herself, over and over, "Come back. Please, just come back." And though the night was long, her tears never stopped. For the first time, doubt tried to break through her walls of trust. But even in her fear, she held the note close. The words, "Trust me," were all she had. And she chose to believe them. even as her heart broke in the waiting. The door finally opened as dawn broke. Michael stepped inside, his clothes damp with frost, his face pale from the cold night. Angela rushed toward him, tears still fresh on her cheeks. Before she could speak, he pulled her tightly into his arms. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Forgive me. I keep secrets not to hurt you, but to protect you." Angela froze at his words. Protect her? From what? The questions burned inside her, but she did not ask. She only held him closer, desperate not to lose him again. Michael kissed her forehead, his hands trembling. His eyes carried weight she could not read, shadows too deep for her to understand. Angela wanted to demand answers, but love silenced her doubts. She told herself, "He will explain when the time is right." So she nodded, wiping her tears, choosing to trust the man before her. The secret still hung between them, thick and unspoken. But her patience became her shield once more. She did not know that the truth waiting ahead would not only explain his silence, but change her life forever. Weeks later, Angela and Michael received an invitation to a charity gala. Angela thought little of it. To her, it was just another community event. She prepared a modest dress and walked in beside her husband, expecting nothing unusual. But the moment they entered the grand hall, Angela felt the shift. The room was filled with wealthy businessmen, elegant women, and local officials. Yet, instead of ignoring Michael, as people often did, they greeted him with warmth and respect. "Good evening, sir," one man said, shaking his hand firmly. "Glad you could join us," another added, nodding with deference. Angela's heart pounded. She looked at Michael, but he avoided her gaze, his expression calm yet strained. As they moved deeper into the room, more people approached him. Some bowed their heads slightly. Others spoke as if they knew him well. Angela clutched his arm, her voice trembling. "Michael, why are they treating you this way? Do they know you?" He hesitated. His silence was louder than any answer. In that glittering hall, Angela felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Something was about to be revealed. Something she was not prepared to hear. Before Angela could press him further, a man in a tailored suit approached. His tone carried respect. "It's good to see you again, Mr. Anderson. The board has been waiting for your input." Angela froze. The words echoed in her ears. "Mr. Anderson? The board?" Her eyes widened as she turned to Michael, her breath caught in her throat. For years she had known him as a simple laborer, a man with nothing. But here, in front of her, strangers addressed him as someone of importance, someone of power. Michael's jaw tightened. He looked at her with eyes heavy with unspoken truth. He gently took her hand as if bracing her for what was to come. "Angela," he whispered, "there are parts of my life I have never shared with you. Tonight, I can no longer hide them." The hall buzzed with whispers of recognition. Angela's world spun, her mind racing with disbelief. The man she had loved through poverty, the man mocked by the town, was not who she thought he was. And the truth, once hidden, was now standing before her, undeniable. Later that night, away from the crowd, Michael finally spoke. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried deep emotion. "Angela," he said softly, "I was never poor. I chose to live humbly, by choice, not by circumstance. Before I met you, I inherited a fortune from my family. But I walked away from it. I wanted to see who would stand beside me with nothing, who would love me for myself, not for my money or my name." Angela's lips trembled. "You mean, all this time?" "Yes," Michael nodded. "I am the rightful heir to a vast business empire. I could have given you mansions, jewels, and cars, but I needed to be certain. I needed to know if love was enough." Tears welled in Angela's eyes. Memories of cold winters, of empty cupboards, of cruel whispers rushed back. She had endured it all, never doubting him. And now she understood. Her sacrifice, her patience, her faith had led her here. Michael took her hand, his voice breaking. "And Angela, you proved it. You loved me for who I am, and now everything I have is ours." Angela stood in silence, her heart overwhelmed. Memories rushed back like waves. Cold winters spent under thin blankets, nights when her stomach ached from hunger, mornings filled with the whispers of scorn. Every sacrifice, every wound, every moment of doubt now made sense. Her chest tightened as tears fell down her cheeks. But they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of release, of joy, of a truth finally revealed. She remembered how she had defended Michael to her parents, how she had ignored the laughter of neighbors, how she had carried her pain quietly, believing love was greater than comfort. And now, here was the proof she had longed for without even knowing it. Michael had not been a poor man abandoned by fate. He had been a man testing the depth of love, and Angela had passed that test with unwavering faith. She covered her face with trembling hands, whispering through her tears, "So this is what it was all for." For the first time, she felt the weight of her suffering transform into something else, into victory, into the pure joy of knowing that her love had never been in vain. Michael stepped closer, gently lifting Angela's chin so she could meet his eyes. His voice was steady, but it carried the gravity of his heart. "Angela," he said, "I chose you because you chose my heart, not my wealth. When the world saw nothing in me, you saw everything. You stood beside me when all I had was love, and that is why I will spend the rest of my life proving that your choice was right." Angela's lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but words failed. Instead, she clung to his hands, feeling the warmth that had carried her through every cold night. Michael continued, his voice breaking with emotion. "Many people chase money, titles, and power. But you chose love when it cost you everything, and because of that, you have gained more than all of them combined." Angela nodded, her tears still flowing. His words were the confirmation of everything she had believed. And in that moment, she realized that true love did not only survive hardship, it transformed it. It turned pain into triumph. Her faith, her patience, her sacrifice had not just endured. They had been rewarded beyond measure. Time moved forward, and with it, life began to change. The small rented apartment with drafty windows was replaced by a home of grandeur. Walls stood tall, rooms stretched wide, and warmth filled every corner. Angela walked through the halls of their new house with quiet awe. Yet, she never forgot the nights spent in their humble flat. She decorated the mansion not with jewels or gold, but with laughter, warmth, and simple kindness. Michael often told her, "We may live in wealth now, but let us never forget the nights we shared in that tiny apartment, eating soup and dreaming together." And Angela agreed. To her, the house was not a symbol of victory over poverty. It was a reminder of how love had carried them when nothing else could. Neighbors looked at the mansion with envy. Relatives whispered with new respect. But Angela did not let pride take root. She remained the same woman, grounded in the truth that happiness was never about the size of a home. Their lives had transformed, yes, but at its core nothing had changed. Because love, their real treasure, remained exactly as it was before. The same parents who once doubted Angela now looked at her with new eyes. One evening, her father took her hand and whispered, "You chose wisely. Not because Michael is rich, but because he is a man of honor. We were blinded by money, but you saw with your heart." Her mother nodded, tears in her eyes, unable to hide her pride. Angela felt peace at last, knowing her parents finally understood. The neighbors who once mocked her now fell silent. Some even offered apologies. Others, too proud to admit their cruelty, watched from a distance with quiet envy. Where once they whispered with pity, now they spoke with respect. Angela did not seek their approval. She had never lived for their words. Yet the change around her confirmed what she had always believed, that love outshines judgment, that truth silences ridicule. Society had turned its back on her, but now it stood in awe. And Angela, unchanged by wealth or praise, walked among them with humility. She carried no bitterness, only quiet triumph. because in the end, her choice had proven stronger than the world's opinion. One night, as they sat together by the fire, Angela leaned her head against Michael's shoulder. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "If poverty came again, I would still choose you," she said. Michael kissed her forehead, his reply firm and tender. "And if I lost everything, I would still choose you." The words hung in the quiet room like a vow renewed. They did not need riches to bind them. Their bond had already been tested, and it had already triumphed. The narrator's voice rises. "True love is the greatest treasure of all. It is stronger than money, greater than fame, deeper even than the struggle to survive. It is the one wealth that cannot be stolen, cannot be lost." For those listening, the message is clear. Love, when chosen with courage, can turn hardship into victory, silence into song. And if this story touched your heart, share it with others. Leave a comment to honor love that endures. And don't forget to subscribe, so together we can keep the flame of hope alive, one story at a time.